It's the rare film that almost everyone agrees on. A movie that stumbled in theaters, only to quietly move into people's hearts and never leave. A film so rich in detail that even longtime fans keep spotting things they somehow missed the first dozen times. I'm talking, of course, about The Shawshank Redemption. For millions of viewers, this story of friendship, perseverance, and hope isn't just a good movie, it's the movie. But what if the version you love is only the surface? What if behind the familiar scenes there's a whole network of choices, secrets, and hidden meanings that completely reshape how you see Andy and Red? Today we're going deep into the behind-the-scenes truth of The Shawshank Redemption, not random trivia, but the insights the cast and crew have shared over the years. How it was almost never made. How a real abandoned prison shaped every performance. How tiny visual and musical choices quietly guide your emotions long before you realize it. By the end of this video, you'll still love Shawshank. But you may never watch it the same way again. The movie that wasn't supposed to matter. Before we talk about secrets, we have to start with something surprising. Shawshank wasn't designed to be a big, important movie. When writer-director Frank Darabont first asked Stephen King for permission to adapt Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, King didn't slam the door, but he wasn't exactly convinced either. The story was quiet, internal, and deeply psychological. Not the kind of flashy horror or spectacle Hollywood loves to market. So King did something unusual, he basically gave it away. He sold Darabont the adaptation rights for $1 single, part of his "Dollar Baby" practice, where he let promising filmmakers experiment with his shorter works for a symbolic fee. That tiny contract, barely worth the paper it was printed on, changed everything on set. Tim Robbins later explained that this low-stakes beginning gave Darabont something incredibly rare in Hollywood: room to breathe. They weren't making a giant blockbuster with a committee of executives checking every decision. The studio didn't expect a phenomenon, they expected a modest prison drama. Morgan Freeman would later laugh about the irony. The film that would climb to the very top of audience rankings and sit there for years started out as a project the studio barely knew how to promote. Just like Andy himself, Shawshank was underestimated from the start. The prison that became a character. One of the most important decisions Darabont made wasn't about casting or dialogue, it was about location. Instead of building a set on a soundstage, the production moved into a real place, the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield. By the time cameras rolled, the prison had already been shut down for inhumane conditions. The walls weren't designed by art directors, they were soaked with decades of real suffering. Clancy Brown, who played the intimidating Captain Hadley, later admitted that walking through those gates every morning did something to the cast. You didn't have to pretend to feel trapped, the building did half the work for you. Tim Robbins would sometimes sit quietly in a cell between takes. 6 feet by 8 feet. Cold, cramped, and brutally simple. He said that when the metal door closed and you were alone inside, your brain reacted in a very real way. The panic wasn't just acting, it was instinct. Most fans don't realize another detail: a number of the background prisoners you see in the yard and mess hall scenes weren't career extras. They were men who had actually served time in that same facility. Their faces, their posture, the way they moved, those weren't invented. They were built out of memory. The production design team also went further than anyone expected. They didn't just shoot in the prison as they found it, they aged it in reverse. For scenes set in earlier decades, the walls were made slightly cleaner and less worn. As time moved forward in the story, the building slowly decayed, just like the men inside it. Most people never consciously notice this, but your brain does. Morgan Freeman later said that all this detail changed the way he approached Red. He wasn't just playing a prisoner. He was playing a man who had spent a lifetime inside this specific place, its routines, its sounds, its weight. Shawshank isn't just the setting. It's one of the main characters. The hidden lives behind the faces. Another thing most viewers never see: how much invisible work the actors did before a single frame was shot. Morgan Freeman built an entire life for Red that goes far beyond the one crime mentioned in the movie. In his mind, Red wasn't just the guy who can get things. He had once been someone with status in the outside world, running numbers and making quiet deals in his community. A man used to connections, money flowing through his hands, and people depending on him. That's why, inside the prison, he naturally becomes the fixer again. Same skill set, different world. When he meets Andy, Freeman imagined an immediate recognition. Here's another man who used to stand a little higher, and now he's fallen even further. Tim Robbins took a different path for Andy. He didn't think of him as one person, but as two. The Andy that the prison sees, reserved, careful, almost emotionless. And the private Andy we only glimpse, the man quietly carving rocks, chipping at the wall, and daring to believe in a future no one else can see. To keep this split alive, Robbins played public scenes with tight posture, controlled movements, and as little visible emotion as possible. Then, when Andy is alone, in the cell with his records, at the desk in the library, or in the moment he plays the opera over the loudspeakers, his body suddenly loosens. His movements and expressions become more natural, even playful. Most viewers feel that difference without ever being able to explain why. James Whitmore, who plays Brooks, had his own deeply personal approach. He based the character on his father, a man who struggled with loneliness and depression late in life. The simple scene where Brooks feeds birds on a park bench wasn't in the original script. Whitmore suggested it because it reminded him of something his father used to do after his mother passed away. That small act, an old man talking to birds, is why Brooks feels so heartbreakingly real. It's not movie sadness. It's the kind of quiet despair that exists in real parks, in real lives. All of these invisible choices are part of what turns Shawshank from a prison story into something that feels almost painfully human. Symbols hiding in plain sight. The Shawshank Redemption is full of details that don't draw attention to themselves, but once you know they're there, you can't unsee them. Tim Robbins pointed out that Andy is visually imprisoned more than any other character. Even when he's not in his cell, he's constantly framed behind something: staircase railings, wire fencing, window bars, pipes. Other characters in the same scene might stand in open spaces, but the camera keeps placing lines between Andy and the world. It's a quiet reminder that Andy is trapped on several levels. Trapped in a system that refuses to believe his innocence. Trapped in a life he never chose. And trapped inside a plan that he can't share with anyone for decades. Then there's the famous rooftop scene, where the prisoners tar the roof and drink beer in the sun. On the surface, it's about a rare moment of freedom, men who have forgotten what it feels like to be treated as human beings, if only for an hour. But Morgan Freeman later pointed out that something else is happening under the surface. This is the moment Andy begins building a new identity inside Shawshank, the man who can solve financial nightmares. While the others see a kind act, a prisoner getting them beer, Red sees something more. Andy is positioning himself as someone the guards need. From that rooftop, above the rest of the prison, he quietly starts creating the path that will one day lead him out. Even Red's most famous line, "Get busy living or get busy dying," wasn't just written because it sounds good. The crew has talked about how Frank Darabont actually put that sentence on the wall in the production office from the very beginning. Every scene, every character choice, was measured against that idea. Is this person choosing life, or giving in to death on the inside? Once you watch the film through that lens, the whole story shifts. Andy playing the opera? Choosing life. Brooks carving his name and giving up? Choosing death. Red sitting in front of the parole board for the last time and finally speaking the truth? Choosing life, even if they say no. It stops being a story about one man's escape, and becomes a story about the most important decision any of us make, again and again, in quiet ways. The posters on the wall, a timeline of the soul. Most fans remember the posters in Andy's cell: Rita Hayworth, Marilyn Monroe, Raquel Welch. We know they hide the tunnel, that's the big twist. But the cast and director have explained that they do much more than that. The three women chart Andy's personal journey through time and identity. Rita Hayworth represents the world Andy came from, polished, elegant, classic Hollywood beauty from the 1940s. A reminder of the life he lost, and of who he used to be. Marilyn Monroe belongs to a more conflicted era, the late 1950s and early 60s. Still glamorous, but more vulnerable, more complicated. By this point, Andy has already been transformed by years inside. He's not who he was, but he isn't fully free yet either. Raquel Welch in 1 million years BC is something else entirely. Primitive. Wild. Almost outside of time. By the point she appears on Andy's wall, he's no longer emotionally living in the past. He's preparing to do something raw and risky, to crawl through filth, abandon his old identity, and be reborn. Frank Darabont once explained that the posters form a visual path toward freedom. Fully covered, then partially revealed, then almost bare. The closer Andy gets to escape, the more the image on the wall strips away the layers of civilization. So when the camera pushes into Raquel's poster and we finally see what's behind it, it isn't just revealing a tunnel. It's showing us the last veil between the man he was and the man he's about to become. When the weather speaks. There's another storyteller in Shawshank that you may never have fully noticed, the sky. Morgan Freeman has mentioned how intentional the weather is in this movie. When something cruel or devastating happens inside the prison, the sky is almost always heavy or rainy. When the warden's world collapses, when Tommy is killed, when Andy is attacked early in his sentence, it's as if the heavens themselves are weeping or raging over what's taking place. Andy's escape is set during a thunderstorm. Nature isn't calm or peaceful, it's as intense as his situation. Lightning, roaring water, and a man fighting his way through the earth itself. And then, sunlight. When Red finally finds Andy on the beach in Mexico, it's the first time we see truly clear, bright, welcoming weather. No clouds filtering the light, no gray tones, no gloom. Until that last stretch of film, freedom is something talked about, imagined, or barely tasted. In the final scenes, creation itself seems to agree. This is what freedom looks like. If this story moved you or made you see the film in a new way, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We share these stories because they matter. And before you go, tell us in the comments which moment of the Shawshank Redemption stayed with you the most.